All right, guys. Today we've got for you the Seattle Kraken quick recap, and then we'll jump right into the 2023-24 upcoming season, how they look after that draft. And free agency's been open for about a month now. So I'll dive straight into the recap of Seattle Kraken for you. They finished 12th overall in the standings with 46 wins and 100 points on the season. Now they took the first wildcard spot. I'm pretty sure that's how it works, right? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it should be right.
wildcard spot one, right? I'm like, yeah, surely it's the first one that they get. Winnipeg took second. Just didn't wasn't sure. They finished seventh in their division. I feel like that's in the conference. I feel like
Not in
that's
the
how it should go.
division, yeah, they ain't making the the playoffs of the division, but yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's how it should go. They finished seventh in their conference, but as we've seen in the other one, it's not always. Yeah, there's some weird things in the NHL. You finish 16th and you don't make playoffs. So yeah, they finished the first wildcard spot in the West, and ultimately it was their second year in the league. And after having an absolute disastrous first season, which I think most people expected, they only had 60 points in their first season. They end this season with 100. So a massive, massive improvement in just their second franchise year. So a lot of people weren't really expecting it, and I think at some point everyone just expected that they'd crumble. However, they didn't. They continued to push. They had a couple of slumps, but then they jumped straight back out of them relatively quickly. And it was really built off of their defensive structure. They didn't really have all that great goaltending. I don't think Grubauer played 30 odd games. You had Martin Jones in net for majority of the rest of it, and I think they had a couple others come through at times. So, not the best goaltending, which probably let them down a bit through the year. But I think their whole game structure is what sort of carried them through and got them to ultimately their first playoffs in franchise history, which I guess it took them 1 year longer than Vegas, but I think making the playoffs in your second year as a franchise is pretty darn impressive. So, they ultimately make it through the first round as well. I mean, you make the playoffs for the first time in franchise history, and then you come up against the Stanley Cup champions the previous year in the Colorado Avalanche. I think you're probably feeling a bit hard done by there. Cool. It's like, yeah, we just made the playoffs for the first time in franchise history, and we've got to play the defending champions. But ultimately, they got it done, and they moved on to the second round, where unfortunately their time would come to an end, albeit a fantastic run, but ultimately they fell to it was the Dallas Stars, yeah. Dallas Stars they lost
from
to
memory, running off my
that
memory, I
second.
think it was, yeah.
Yeah, Dallas Stars in the second round, and I mean, what can you say? Like, it's a pretty impressive second season. If you were to tell me last season, before this season started, that the Seattle Kraken were even going to come close to playoffs, let alone make the second round, I think any Seattle fan would have taken that, and I think any NHL fan would have been like, you're dreaming. So yeah, an absolute breakout season.
They did good.
They had the Calder Trophy winner as well in Matty Beniers. So, they just had nothing but ups in the 2022-23 season. And, I think this is a big stepping stone. Questions, obviously, that we'll talk about in a minute in the next season outlook. But, it's probably, can they back it up? But at the end of the day, you've really just got to take your hats off to them. An absolute incredible performance. And they were probably a bit unlucky not to go to the third round. So, yeah, absolutely incredible by the Kraken. And, take my hats off to them. And I'll hand on over to you to take everyone through next season's lineup.
Alrighty. Yeah, interesting last season, especially one of the best teams to watch in regards to gameplay on ice anyway. Just under a million in cap space. They have a full roster size here, something we just added here. So 23 roster size, and they got a few contracts more that they could sign, but for their roster, it's pretty much capped. Not many, I don't see any more additions or movements unless they're doing some swaps for swap, you know. But starting off, first line, McCann, Beniers, and Eberle. It's pretty much your solid first line there. Beniers, obviously, that Calder and that rookie. We'll see if he can not bounce back, but repeat it, and basically get that big paycheck because he is an RFA this year, so it is a contract year. Second line, Burakovsky, Wenberg, Schwartz. See if he can get a full season at a Burakovsky. That'd be good for him. You got Tolvanen, Gord, and Bjorkstrand on the third. Tanev, Wright, and Yamamoto on the fourth. We'll see if Wright can push for a third or higher in his years. It's a little depressing of a start. We'll have to see if he actually develops, but so far it's not looking the best in regards to his development. Defenders, you got Dunn, Larson, Oleksiak, Borjan, Dumoulin, and Schultz. So one of the best decors there, especially top four, is absolutely amazing. I know Dunn and Larson were plus 28, plus 27 last year. Dunn was their second leading point scorer for the season. I think he had about 60 points, so very solid there. This is probably the weakest link here, the goaltending situation. You got Grubauer, and then they've got here on the backup Decord. You could have Driedger there as well. Obviously, Jones hasn't re-signed, or I don't think he's re-signed with anyone. He's still UFA, but I don't think they would be bringing him back in just because of their salary cap situation. And I think Decord may be ready to take that step with how he played in the AHL, how he did in the playoffs for him, going all the way to Game 7 in the AHL, that was. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Decord even takes that spot from Grubauer, but yeah, that's the interesting part for this team this season. Scratches, Bellemere, who they've brought in, Magna, and then obviously the man I just mentioned, Driedger. So they have have had some notable losses here. Donato signed to Chicago, Geeky Boston, Rafferty Detroit, Susie Vancouver, Sprong Detroit, and Alexander True to Florida. So a lot of notable names of at least depth pieces that they've lost. They've only really brought in three through free agency in Yamamoto, Dumoulin, and Bellemere, and they're all very depth pieces. Obviously, Dumoulin on the third, Yamamoto, that fourth, maybe a scratch throughout the season. We'll see how he plays. And obviously, Bellemere for that league minimum 1 year just for that depth. So, overall, I don't see this team get much better just from their additions because I am a big fan of Donato, who went to Chicago, just personally. And I know Geeky and Susie, Sprong, just some other notable losses, but they don't get worse, in my opinion, like hugely worse. I think they could even get better just internally with their growth. They have one of the best, systems that they play. That's fascinating to watch. Great lockdown defensive system, but it's still fun to watch attacking wise, and it's just probably one of the better teams to watch if you're going to watch a team. And I feel like that there's nothing for me to say that system's not going to do the same thing it did last year to this year. And I feel like we're a little bit more experienced under Beniers and Wright and whatnot. They could even improve. My only biggest concern, they got amazing depth through the forward line and defense. It's their goaltending situation. And is that your same thoughts?
Yeah, I Martin Jones always worried me. It's probably he's not down in our notable losses.
Well, he's not gone anywhere
long.
yet, but yeah.
Yeah, technically he hasn't left. He hasn't left to another team, but he most likely isn't coming back. They don't exactly have cap space for him, and I think with the goaltenders they do have there, they're going to play them above Jones anyway. So yeah, I mean, look, we all know Grubauer he can be a goal like a reasonable goaltender. He showed a bit of that in the playoffs. Question is can he do it consistently? Decord is only 26 years old. He's probably their best bet in sort of finding a full time number one goaltender if Grubauer can't sort of get that consistency going. But look, surely out of these three goaltenders, they're going to be able to get enough decent goaltending efforts that they should be able to put together a season. Because with that defense in front of them and that system in front of them, there's no reason why they can't. All they need to do is stop. Is not let in any more than 3 goals a game on average, and they should be fine because that firepower of a team. I think you were talking about off air. Just they can score on all 4 lines. So it's not like they can't score goals. They find a way to score plenty of goals. So yeah, I think goaltending is an issue, but I also feel like if Decord can back up what he did in the AHL last season, like that could be their answer right there. But there's no reason why Grubauer and Driga, if he does come up at some stage after his ACL tear, there's no reason why they can't get those 3 to put together a good enough season. Yeah, I do know that that's the question mark about them, but I feel like they have enough there. I mean, Driga's now he did his ACL in June-ish 2022, so it's been well over a year. He got himself back late last season, obviously, and I don't know how I don't know if he's gonna be able to get himself back. ACL is a pretty big one, but who knows if he can get himself fit right. He's definitely a good backup there to have, especially as a 3rd string goalie. So it's a worry, but also I could also see it turning into a strength of theirs, especially if it's a tandem with all 3 goalies sort of running in and out, because yeah, you can't tell me you can't get at least 20 to 30 games from each of them as decent games. So yeah, I think my biggest question for these guys as well is just the youngsters, right? Matty Beniers, is he going to have a sophomore slump? He was absolutely phenomenal last year, and I think if anyone's going to sort of beat that sophomore slump, I'd probably see him, but that is always a question on my mind after he wins the Calder Trophy. Will he sort of have a bit of a low year, which really hurt them? Shane Wright is a big one as well. Like, if he can turn into anywhere near what people thought he would be, that again, Matty Beniers and Shane Wright as a 1-2 punch when you've still got Weinberg and Yanni Gord. That's not a bad sort of center lineup, is it? And Yamamoto, for me, I think his career's on the line. He's got a fair bit of talent. Maybe Seattle maybe they can get something out of him. Maybe they can sort of pull that out and get him to play like the player that people think he was going to be in Edmonton. Just never happened.
Yeah, no, it's quite an interesting thing for Yamamoto there, and if he does have that bounce back, I think it's completely possible. Sure, he's small on the stature side of things, but he has shown glimpses that he has the skill, the talent for it. And for $1.5 million for 1 year, he's an RFA, and yeah, there's just zero risk there for me for Seattle. If it works, it works. And it doesn't. I'd take him on a 4th line any day of the week for $1.5 million. And look, like, my concern is that like that second line, it did have probably the worst plus minus. So the second line, forward line, in this whole entire team, their whole entire line was plus minus in the negative, whereas in all the other teams, even their 4th line was generally in the positive. So that is my concern, to see if they can bounce that part back. Granted, like, Vince Dunn and Adam Larson on the defensive side of thing had amazing plus minuses. Just great overall in regards to their 5-on-5 play. I think that is pretty much shown here on the right side for the stats. Their power play and penalty kill, both 21st in the league. Just a little bit subpar. Like 20% basically for a power play is not too bad. You can take it, but you kind of want it to be better, especially if you're going to be a contender. Same with the penalty kill, kind of has to be 80% plus. But like we said earlier in this, the goals for, they were fifth in the league per game, but against they were 15th in regards to keeping it to the least amount. So they're really good on their 5-on-5, and that's shown here. But it was where the power play and penalty kill, I feel like lacked a little bit. They got great depth. Like there's only one player over here that has getting paid over 6 million, and I feel like this is very unheard of in today's NHL. At least there a lot of $5 million contracts. You look at the left side. There's two there, 5 million. Down the middle, there's basically two there. On the right side, there's three there. So there's a lot of depth here and not much superstars. Granted, Beniers really is that. You can say McCann's that, and same with Eberle. Like you can make that argument, but for that contract, they're not getting paid that. And I think it's a big difference to like the McDavid contracts. Matthews wanting 13, 14 million in his signing. They've gone about it a completely different way, and it's working. And that it shows in their stats. Like McCann had 40 goals, but the next highest was Beniers, I think was 24. So, and then it was just like 20s, range between 15 to 24 for those goals, all the way down to their fourth line. So amazing depth. They've only added a little bit more depth for the pieces they've lost, so they haven't really added or changed anything. And I don't think you can really, just because of the fact like Beniers' contracts coming up. I know Eberle and Wenberg contracts are coming up this year, but you do need to replace those players as well. But you do have a couple signings, Tolvanen, obviously Beniers, Yamamoto. I don't expect him getting any more than 1.5, but you never know what players can do. And if these people do get big salaries, you have to accommodate for that. And I don't know where they lose that money if you're not replacing those players. That is my concern for them in the future.
Yeah, I mean, touching on your point about their contracts, it's pretty much like they get a bunch of second line players, pay them all $5 million.
Yeah.
But they have 9 of them. Like
Yeah.
okay, you sit there and go, oh, but you got second liners on your first line. Well, you've also got second liners on your third line, and it's just basically a complete team effort. It's not, oh, we need this one line to do everything. It's, we know that we bat deep. We know that, whatever line we send out there, because if you like, one of the perfect examples of this is just look at their time on ice average, right? Their first line averages the same as their second line, and almost averages the same as their third line.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a complete team. Like they're not worried about, oh, okay, well, we need to play our first line 20 plus minutes a night. It doesn't matter what line they send out there, they're comfortable. Like you even look at Brandon Tanev, who's on their fourth line, played 14 minutes average time on ice. 14 minutes. That's I won't point out Shane Wright. He only played 8 games, 8 minutes. But if you look at and Yamamoto was obviously at Edmonton on, I think, the third line. So I won't mention those two, but if you look at their 10 of their 12 forwards that were all playing with them last season, their average is from 14, and their most is 18.41. That's across the 10 players. They each share the responsibility on ice. It's not put on one player, so you don't have to worry about any players getting burnt out, because they share that responsibility. Even on the defensive side of things, Yep, Vince Dunn and Adam Larson are obviously the leaders there with 23 minutes. But Lesniak and Borjan, 19, 16. Justin Schultz, 17. I don't have Cersei's number on me, but I'd assume they'd probably be pretty similar in that 16 to 18 minutes or so. You don't have a defender only playing 12 minutes, or 10 minutes, and one of their defenders having to play 25, 26, 27 minutes a night. I just feel like they have that lineup that is deep from the first line down to the fourth line, and then the same with their defense. They have a complete team rather than just a handful of superstars. And I think this is a big reason why they were so good last year. Like they've done it so well. They've picked up a bunch of players that they know can play hockey. They've got the chemistry. They've got the system right, because sometimes that's all it takes. You don't need superstars if you've got a great system. And this is what these guys have. I feel like that's the case with Vegas as well, albeit they've got a couple of superstars there. Their system's quite good. So it's one of the things that both these expansion teams have got right, is their system that they play. It really benefits. Just basically, you can pull in a second or a third liner into this team, play them anywhere, and it works. And it works with them, and it turns them from someone else's third or fourth liner into a first or second. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like these guys, they've done it right, but I do agree with you. Like the Beniers situation, what is he going to want? Can they convince him to take a team friendly deal? Can they sign him to 8x8 or something? Right? Because that would just be icing on the cake. I know you're gonna obviously have to lose someone, but they do have Drager, $3.5 million coming off the cap just there, and then you've got Schultz, Weinberg, Eberle, and I know that obviously you have to replace them, but Jordan Eberle is at that age now that he's 33 years old. Is he going to take a $5.5 million contract? Can you convince him to stay on for 2 to 3 years at I don't know, 2.5 mil, 3 mil, or something along those lines, right? He's a bit older. Give him a 3-year contract at low cap hit, and it might just convince him to stay on. And you also save that $3 million to put into Beniers, because we know that with Decord and Grubauer, they're not going to need to re-sign Drager. So unless they buy out Grubauer for some reason and re-sign Drager instead. But I feel like they'll be able to get that. It's just going to be how can they restructure some of these deals? Because I think if they can keep Eberle, that would be a really big contract signing. Weinberg, I'm not as concerned about. I don't mind him, but I feel like if Shane Wright can get himself to where he should be, that's a pretty good one to punch in.
Well, he's the
Beniers
X
and Wright
factor for
and
this team,
Triani.
really. Like if
If
he comes to what everyone predicted that he would be, even if he just becomes that second liner, like this team just feels out that much better. That it's just insane. So, like the X factor is right. It is a shame that it could look like he does bust, but it is very early, and I think
it's way too early.
Everyone hops on these first top 10 picks, basically, especially top 3, and expect them to play immediately. And I know Wright probably hasn't had the attitude, the correct attitude and whatnot, but yeah, everyone just jumps on it really quickly. Expects them to be, a McDavid or something like that, and just immediately first line play, carry me to the playoffs, and it doesn't work that way. So I'll be interested to see if he develops.
That's what everyone said that about Jack Hughes, and look.
Oh yeah. But you actually watch the game
phenomenal.
though. He never looked bad. Like you could see the skill.
No,
he
just needed that size.
Yeah, and everyone who wrote him off, I laughed at, because you could see the skill. It just it was like Nico Hischier. It just takes that little bit of development, and that that
They're,
player's a
and
gun.
they're talking about it like Rasmus Dahlin as well. You know, they were talking
Yeah,
about him being a bust, and
yeah.
now he's one of the best defenders in the league.
Look,
Like,
the media needs
um,
clicks. Let's be real. It's pure clicks,
oh,
and I think
I-
it's against the
you-
NHL overall, just because of
mm,
like you're downplaying or downsizing like these great generational talents that come up in the early
yeah,
years, and then people don't hop on the bandwagon for them early enough, and it's
yeah.
hard to switch this person's a bust to, hey, this
Well,
person's the Michael Jordan, or something like
what,
that. So I feel like it
I
does
was, I
NHL
was,
a bad thing there.
there was a stat I was reading about, what was it, Lafreniere, where he only had 2 even strength goals less than what Mika Zibanejad had.
Zibanejad, yep.
Yeah, in the same time, in the last 2 years, I think he has 2 less even strength goals than Mika Zibanejad.
Yeah, he just
So
doesn't
it's
get power
like,
play. Yeah.
and that's what I mean. Like, Lafreniere is being called one of the biggest busts. You know, like,
Mm.
him and Kako, but Kako is starting to make some headway. But you've also got to look at the system they get brought up in sometimes, and yeah, it takes some of these players 2, 3, 4 years to really develop. But
Yeah.
yeah, when I saw that stat, I was like, oh, okay, so it really is just the system that guy is in right now. And yeah, like with Shane Wright, he played 8 games last year on the fourth line. You know,
Eight minutes is nothing.
was his was his head right as well? Because
No, his head's
everything
right. That's why yeah.
that is, you know, is what happened at the draft, did that have an effect on him? Did it take him a little while to get past that? Because obviously, I'm going to go number 1, everything's going to go, and he slips to number 4. Like, that's a massive drop. I'm
Mm.
sure it's had some sort of effect on him. And I guess that's, like, the Kraken would just be working on that. Like, hey, mate, get out of the limelight. We're going to take you away. We're going to try and, like, shield you from it as much as possible,
Yeah.
get you just some development going, then we'll bring you back up next year, and you can hit the ground running. No pressure, no, that everyone can call you a bust all they want, and now you can jump in when
Well,
everyone forgets
yeah.
about you, thinks you're a bust,
Like
and
we
you
could
can
go
come
on
in and
heaps of big
dominate.
tangents on this stuff. Like that's the one thing I want to hit on is, just how the teams develop the players as well. Like Montreal kind of mishandled their situation with Slapkovsky, I like to call him. And
Mm,
then you've got Seattle that kind of looked like they mishandled the situation with Wright. It hurts the development of that player as well. So you can look at the player and how they're developing, but like you said with Lafreniere, like it does come down to the team and that organization as a whole and how they develop those players. And
mm,
I've heard amazing things from inside New Jersey's sort of thing about their development on how the management's always in touch with their young stars, even though they're playing in Europe or Russia or something. And
mm.
like it's just you got to build that culture and you got to have that that mindset for the youngsters. And
Yeah.
I
Well, I
feel
think
like I
Seattle's
feel like
doing that.
Seattle could do this. It only
Well,
8
look at
games
Vince
was played.
Dunn.
Yeah,
Like, look at
exactly.
Vince Dunn.
Yeah.
St. Louis was just like, no, we don't want you
Mm.
in the franchise draft, and now he's playing first line top minutes, putting up 64 points or whatever he did last year,
Mm.
and he's just signed a decent contract extension for 7.3 mil. Like, I love Dunn. I couldn't believe that St. Louis just threw him away like that, threw him to the wolves, and went, here, take him. I was like, if you're going to try and push anyone, try and push Tarasenko. I guess, he's injured. You don't know what's going to happen. Get that money off your books.
Mm.
But instead, they throw away someone like a Vince Dunn, and now look at him. They could probably use him now more than ever in St. Louis. But again, would he have turned into this player if he was under St. Louis's system?
Oh, exactly. Exactly. You get the extra responsibility, the extra power play or penalty kill time to develop your game. Like I know there's a little bit tangent off for Seattle, but I'll watch an interview with Darnell Nurse, and I know it's not the best person to talk about like developing as a defenseman because it's overpaid compared to his contract. But he's still decent, just not that $9 million player. But it was interesting
Mm,
how he said that one of the biggest changes for him was when one of the coaches came in because he had a coaching change every year, And one of the coaches said, you can be more than a shutdown defenseman. You can open up your offensive game, and he did. And then
Mm.
he developed better that way. And so this does come down a lot to the coach, but it does come a lot down to how much freedom the coach has that is given from the general manager as well. Because I know some can be a little bit tight on how are you treating this player, how are you doing that, like why isn't that player getting top line minutes? They sell the best shirts, etc. But
Mm.
I think Hackstall, can definitely help develop right. I think he can do something good there for them. And Ron Francis has shown that he didn't have to do anything crazy this off season to rebuild the team. He has faith in this team, faith in this system. So, well, I think that internally it's going to grow good. I love the fan base for Seattle. My partner is one of my favorites when she was looking at it, just because of the logo, the fact it's Kraken. It's just honestly, there's not much to dislike about Seattle, just besides the point that they're only 3 years old. And if they won a cup, you'd be like, well, I'm a Toronto fan. I haven't won the cup in 40 something years, but and here,
Especially when the last franchise team just fucking
yeah,
won one, eh?
yeah. And some of us are old enough to remember, or at least know about of the expansion teams before these two, and how rough they had it for 5-10 years before they actually became
Mm-hmm.
something, because of just the squads they were given were that deplorable. So yeah, it's interesting. I think it's well managed the way they've turned it around from the first season to second. I think it's completely doable for the third. I think what best biggest competitors are what, like Dallas still. You got the Oilers always there. Vegas still looks strong. And then obviously you got the Avs, who's probably number one there in regards to strength, even though Vegas just won it. I sort of think Avs has probably got the strongest lineup, though they don't have Landeskog. So they got top tier teams to compete with in the West, and
Mm.
I still think they can match them in regards to their system. Obviously not in firepower, but their depth. I think they probably beat any team in the league almost in regards to depth.
I definitely, yeah, I think Vegas probably give them a close run for their money if you're talking depth wise. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because you look at, I, you can wipe off Anaheim and San Jose, like they're not going to be anything next season. I I don't want to do it to Vancouver fans, but I honestly don't think Vancouver will be anything either. Sorry, I didn't mean. Hopefully,
Here's a drive by.
no Vancouver. Yeah, hopefully no Vancouver fans see this. My apologies, but you look at it. There's a good top five there because I don't see Edmonton dropping off the pace. Even though I don't think they really. I just think they need a major shake up to be anything in terms of
Yeah,
true contenders.
they're a
I
playoff
think
team, but not a cup
Vegas,
team. Yeah, Vegas are a cup
exactly. I think
team.
Vegas, yeah, they might fall off a little bit just with some of the losses, but I still think they'll be strong. Calgary, I think, will have a bounce back year, as we've spoken about. And Los Angeles is the big question mark for me. I'm just not sure. Like, I still think they're going to be strong, but they could be one of those teams that do slip off. So it's going to be interesting because it might not be as simple as as simple as that with Seattle. But again, like you could see 5 teams from the Pacific making it because the Central, honestly, in my opinion, is looking quite weak in terms of.
Yeah.
I'm just not
Well,
sure
both
where
these
Winnipeg
divisions are very
and
top heavy,
Nashville sit.
bottom heavy. You know what I mean? Like it's either full
Mm,
rebuild or we're trying to go for it, in a sense.
yeah.
And
So.
they're definitely in that mode. I guess like we'll start wrapping it up here, but my two biggest X factors for this team is definitely Wright and Decord on the goaltending front. If Decord can
Mm,
take that number one spot and be that solidifying pole that they can rely on, that pretty much sounds up a lot of the issues that I've seen with regards to the goaltending. Because I think Grubauer is a decent backup. Same with Driedger if he does rebound to what he was. And Wright, if he fills out hopefully like that third line role, even if he plays a fourth line role, but he's showing promise, that's all I need. I'd like to see some little bit of development, not development, but like improvement from Dumoulin in regards to plus minus. I think it was pretty poor from last season, but
It was on a poor Pittsburgh team, so
yeah, but it's still got to take some sort of responsibility. And then yeah,
yeah.
Yamamoto, definitely my probably going to be the big surprise here if it's not Decord, because I feel like he can fill this team out. He's got that firepower, so I reckon he gets you 15 plus goals, even on the fourth line with the way this system goes.
No, I agree with you there. I think Shane Wright's going to be a big one if he can fire this team. With unless of course he fires and Matty Beniers goes all the way back. But as long as Beniers and the rest of the team stay relatively steady, if you throw in, firing Shane Wright, a healthy Burakovsky, and Kali Yamamoto playing for his life. This team can be just as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than what they were last season. So yeah, I'm definitely going to have my eyes on these guys again. As you said, they were fun to watch. I'm interested in, Shane Wright, Matty Beniers, and Yamamoto. I just want to see what those youngsters sort of, Yamamoto not as much, still pretty young, but still. I'm interested just to see what they can bring, because that could be what sort of takes this team from a wild card spot to top three in the
Yeah.
Pacific.
Yeah, if you're going to improve a stat though, and what they'll be improving over the off season is that power play and penalty kill. If you improve that to like a 16th or plus, I think they make third round minimum, and then maybe even the cup final if they improve that stat with everything else they had. So a lot to like. It's basically, can they repeat it? Can their youngsters keep developing? Can their risky picks in regards to Yamamoto and whatnot pan out at least, even though it's not really that risky. And yeah, I still think good things, not just for this year, but at least for the next three, depending on how they sign Beniers. So if you're a Seattle fan, you're definitely happy that that town finally has team to support that's actually doing well. So yeah, good for them. And
For
yeah,
sure.
unless you got any final thoughts, we can end it there.
Nah, good luck to your Seattle fans. I think, as much as we don't want to see a second new franchise team winning the cup, it's hard to sort of be angry if they were to do it, because I definitely don't mind the Seattle Kraken, that's
No,
for sure.
yeah, actually, they're up there with some of my favorite teams. So I
Mm.
definitely wouldn't be hurt, but it does hurt that there'd be a brand new team doing it. But yeah,
Yeah,
let us know what you
sure.
think below on the Seattle Kraken, how you would react if they did win the cup. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Leave all notifications on for more content, as we'll be posting the rest of these teams in the coming days. But till next time, catch you later, guys.
See you guys.